Hi, my name is Dennis Salan. Welcome to People's Channel. I was here in this little town of Toyando doing research on a different topic, but I decided I must stop and we have a chat on the election of US President Donald Trump. Let's all agree that Donald Trump is in power now in the US. I'm saying let's agree because I'm trying to be diplomatic because I can see there are large chunks of the population of America, the population of other countries that are not happy with the fact that Mr. Trump is the president of the USA. But then that's the reality. He's the president and is going to reign for the entire term of office. No amount of protests, no amount of public shows of this content will stop his term. Because remember, in as much as most people do not agree with the way America is being run as a superpower, but it is founded on democratic principles which are not very easy to erase just because we don't wish so. So let's agree. Let's do ourselves this favor and agree that Donald Trump is in power and we have to deal with it either way. Because as I'm speaking, people are standing on two sides of the river. I'm remembering the title of the book by our Archbishop. I can't remember what title he is saving now, but by the time he wrote that book, he was Archbishop Desmond Pilontutu. In his book, Turning Swords into Plowshares. If you can go through the introduction of the book, it talks about people standing on two sides of the river, the same river and the same people, but the people are divided into two, which means they're antagonistic of one another's worldview, one another's aspirations, one another's expectations, aspirations, and all the like, which by the same breath reminds us of Lucky Dube, who sang in one of his world famous songs that different people, one color, different colors, one people. So I'm expanding my introduction in order to make it an understandable fact that we have Donald Trump as the president of the superpower of the world, and we have to live with it. Now, let me first try to come with an educated guess as to how did Mr. Trump go into that office? How did he win that chair, that office? Because agree with me, America is not just a country, but it's a very significant country. That's why it's called a superpower. Historically, we know that America was a superpower which was standing in world affairs face to face with Russia or USSR, if you like. And the USSR, or the Union Soviet of Socialist Republic, was gluing all nations from the East. That was called the chief of the Eastern Bloc, and America was the chief of the Western Bloc. That's why I find that historically America went along with its Western allies and USSR went along with its Eastern allies. So Donald Trump being where he is sitting on a seat that cements the power, the dominion, the influence of the USA, the United States of America. It takes over from Mr. Barack Obama, who came into power under a different meal ticket, under a different set of promises to American citizens and to the world. Because you must remember that when Mr. Obama took over office, he took it at a time when America was being shaken down, being threatened by global wars, global attacks, which were in turn provoked by the overhandedness or the rough approach of Mr. George W. Bush. Okay, let me cut the rhetoric. Let me cut the long introductions, because what I'm trying to overscore with this underlination is that Mr. Trump is reigning supreme as the state president of the USSR. How did he come to that office? He came to that office because he worked on the apathy of the general public of the USA, who thought because Mr. Trump is coming with all those anti-peace accords, with those sentiments, those warlike sentiments, he was not going to get support after all. That's what many people in the USA, the general voters in the USA, and people who could have said the votes in other countries, that's what they believed, or that's generally what we believed. We thought his election campaign was just a waste of time. He was going to lick his wounds. He was going to be a wounded tiger come the end date of elections. Then the first section of the population in the USA that would have worked to stop him from assuming that office either did not work hard enough, or they sat down and relaxed, thinking that his election was a self-destruction campaign that will see him to his political grave. And that is how he won part of the section of the population that elected him into power. Number two, Donald Trump, in his election campaign, realized that America is divided. America is divided into the right and to the left, into the section of the American population that is still clinging to the bitterness of the so-called terrorist attacks, global terrorist wars, that is still clinging to the bitterness of the attacks on September 11, 2011, that was still gearing towards paying revenge to whoever is responsible for the global interests in war against the West. I would like to add my own opinion that part of that section of the population is the big American business who have the mindset, the financial mindset, to successfully fund any election campaign that they think will work in their favor. It also, this section of population also includes the farmers, the business people, the influential people who are sympathetic to the cause as expressed by Trump. And that section brought another part of the vote onto the table of Mr. Trump. And while the other section that would have worked against him relaxed and said, no, he won't do it. Of course, by definition, Mr. Trump is not associated with the democratic principles or democratic side of the political scenario in America. Else is the Republican. And he, in my view, he also saw opportunity in the slums like Harlem, where the poor people of the USA are in the majority. And even though humane, sympathetic policies of Mr. Obama seeks to address their plea, their problems, but physically it seems like Mr. Obama or anyone assigned to them in his administration did not have enough time to establish physical contact with them. So it was theory. And when Trump came storming into those slums, promising them a better life, I suppose they fell for the trick. And that added another slice of the electoral vote into his favor. Now, another bullet that shot the owner, in my view, is that Miss Clinton, Madam Clinton, being the wife of a former president of the USA, that is in itself sends public messages that can be interpreted differently by different people. So I think most of the people said no, we would rather not vote because we don't want Trump ill, but at the same time we don't want Miss Clinton because that is the repetition of the presidency within the same family, if we like. And that creates superiority. It creates super families. The Clintons are not ready to share power with other people within their own Democratic Party. I'm not sure if that is true, but I think that must be one of the reasons why the Clinton election campaign did not draw lots. As a result, another considerable slice of the American vote was added in favor of Trump. Now, what happens? We have a person who knows that he does not necessarily stand ground, he does not necessarily stand a chance to win the vote, working day and night, going up and down river and hill, cajoling, motivating the people to go and vote. And there's the other side that confidently knows that the people in America and world over are in favor of their policies. After all, that is why they've ushered in Barack Obama as the president. So they are still going to put in a president in the same fold, in the same party. So why bother? Why bother and go to the polling station? Because we know we are winners. So that's where we are. We found that the balance of forces came or tilted in favor of Trump. Now Trump is in office. Let's agree. I'm still saying let's agree because I can see many people are still not prepared to accept that. That's why there are public protests in America, in other countries. Let's agree. Let's do ourselves a favor, and if we can be able to accept that and move out of the denial, because it's not a public secret that Trump, by being in power, he is not just seeking to reverse, but he has already started on high note. He has hit the ground running, trying to reverse the gains, especially the liberal gains, the gains that led or are leading to unification of thought, unification of purpose, unification of patriotism in the USA and by extension the whole world. His his little policies or his few policies that he has already started implementing, including the ban to other sections of the population, especially those who are, in his understanding, are foreign to American soil. It's starting, whether it will succeed or not, but his intentions are clear. Now, between now and the next election, that is where the response to this leadership of Trump will come in and will be tested in the furnace of hot fire. It will be tested whether it can be able to unseat the trend as introduced by Trump. Because one thing sure, he is cementing, is consolidating his power, is consolidating his support in America and abroad. And it will take a concerted effort by the people on the other side of the river, including myself, because I know I'm no longer welcome in the USA like I was before, even though it was not muted publicly. But I know now that if black people, for example, if Arabic people, if all people that are not deemed as that American or that white, but are citizens of America, are beginning to be purged out, like it's the case with the ban on people who are visiting outside and they're coming after a certain period of time. What more about we who are not citizens of America, and especially those of us who would like to be citizens one day in our lifetime? So it needs a concerted effort. It needs a wide open eye strategy. It needs an activism that does not wait for the election period, but it must start now. And it's going to be a hard one because we will be fighting not only the president of America, but the whole workforce that put him into power. So that apathy that allowed him to come in, excuse me, it needs a concerted effort starting from now, a peaceful one. I'm not talking about bombings, I'm not talking about all those things. I'm talking about the war of conscience, the psychological warfare, the battle of ideas, changing the people who voted him into power to understand the simple truth that they voted him into power because a cart was dangled in front of them, a cart of war terrors, war scare tactics. not knowing that when they vote him to power, they're inviting even more trouble because his policies will always generate hard, forceful reactions. And unfortunately, the target will be the American soil. And voting him or his policies out of power will be doing everyone a favor because we'll be restoring the world peace that was already being put on table, being rolled out. Now, I want to hear from you, whether you're in America, whether you're in Indonesia, whether you're in South Africa, whether you're in Israel. We're not against the person, we're against the ideas, the policies that the person in power is advancing, because America is a factor, USA is a factor, we can't run away from it. And if it is allowed to move in the direction and the pace that it started, then we might well be facing another world war, whether we want it or not. So, what's your view? Let me hear from you. Put your comments here below. I'll be there to interact with you. For now,